Welcome to A Brief History of Chakras. You might wonder why that would be important. Well, sometimes if you don't know the history of something, it can seem a little bit unapproachable. One can tend to think that, well, the chakras, they're ancient, they're from another culture, and how can I know something so well that I could practice it? Well, we are going to lift that veil for you and talk about this history. When we talk about the chakras, we have a general idea of what they are based upon what we know of them today. We have seen images, we've bought the candles, the stones, and all kinds of accoutrements and attuned to them. But where did it come from?
The word chakra originally probably meant wheel, cycle, or center. The etymology of that is its own interesting study. And even the pronunciation varies a lot. It could be chakra, it could be chakra, it could be jacra. There are a lot of different ideas on that. It's often believed that the original word was pronounced kakra. But we do know that it's an old Sanskrit word. The history goes back somewhere around 3,000 years. And over that 3,000 years, it's been used in a lot of different ways. There's been various different ways in which the number of chakras were portrayed or where they are portrayed. Could be hundreds, could be 4. They weren't really the tools like we use them today. They weren't looking in, they weren't studying them like we do today. They were focal points for installing God forms. So their exact locations and properties were rarely of significant consequence.
Although they were installing God forms, that's not what we are doing today. So let's take a look at how we got from there to here.
And a lot of that has to do with Helena Blavatsky, who never gets the credit she deserves. She was amazing. She did so many amazing things. In this case, what we're focusing on is the fact that in 1879, she traveled to India to learn from the people of India. That was so rare. I'm not aware of anyone else having done that before her. Lots of people went there to exploit the people of India, but she went to learn from them. This was groundbreaking. This was influential. This was important.
She founded the Theosophical Society, which she formed in New York in 1875. She did a lot of talking, and so she did a lot of talking about those chakras, and that is probably the first place that you see the chakras being brought into the Western civilization in any big significant way. The Theosophical Society was a really important bridge between occultists and spiritualists. And Helena Blavatsky just did so much that was important and really influential, and you really won't find that she got all the credit for all the things that she really truly deserved.
Speaking of people who are hugely influential, we have McGregor Mathers.
Now, McGregor Mathers, he was one of the founders of the Golden Dawn, and one of the people who was most creative when it came to ritual and ritual procedures. The Golden Dawn was also a highly influential organization, a magical organization that pretty much changed the face of magical practice in the Western world. He took the idea of the chakras and connected them to the idea of the Kabbalistic tree of life. And a lot of their magical practices had to do with magical developments utilizing that tree of life and the chakras together. And you will see in the Golden Dawn more work being done in ritual with the chakras, therefore. You will find this utilized by many occultists, including one of our personal favorites, Dion Fortune. She was very interested in this work done by McGregor Mathers and the Golden Dawn, and she, in her own group, did an awful lot of work as well with the chakras and with the Kabbalistic tree of life.
There was a judge in India named John Woodruff, and he was very interested in Tantra. Now, in India, Tantra means a little bit something different from how we tend to think of it in the West. But a lot of the way that we think of it in the West is because of John Woodruff. He wrote and translated texts, and the way he translated them brought out a lot of the ideas that we associate today with Tantra. As far as the chakras go, the important thing is that he included a 6-chakra system and talked about the crown. So basically laid the groundwork for a 7-chakra system.
And Following the tradition of Helena Blavatsky, Charles Leadbeater came into the scene and continued working with the chakras, utilizing intuitive techniques, similar to the way that energy workers work with chakras even today. He was a member of the Theosophical Society, and he published a book called The Chakras in 1927. You'll see from that diagram that he doesn't have the chakras all in one line going from the top to the bottom, and there's some of the chakras that are not in the same positions, but it is a step in the evolution between then and now.
The really important thing about Charles Leadbeater and other members of the Theosophical Society is that they were using intuitive techniques. This continued and continues through to today.
Now that culminated in 1977 when the ideas congealed into the system that we are more familiar with today. Now chances are that you've never even heard of Ken Dychtwald. And, that's perfectly okay. He just happened to be the first person to publish the system. If it hadn't been him, it probably would have been someone else. Now, the ideas were headed in this direction anyway, and it was kind of inevitable that someone would publish it at some point.
But he was utilizing the intuitive techniques, and we continue to utilize the intuitive techniques in dealing with the chakras. This is not the Indian system. This is a completely different thing. We have this vision of basically the rainbow of colors installed in a very neat and orderly way within the body, which each one has its own properties. He was the person who took that idea and put it all together. He was the first one to get there. So the system we use today is not an ancient Sanskrit system. We don't have to understand Sanskrit. We don't have to study Sanskrit. Our system dates back to 1977. It's still a good system. It works.
It is legitimate because it works.
I've been utilizing this system for over 20 years, and I always felt like I could never truly understand it because I don't speak Sanskrit. How could I ever truly understand this? And then researching it, realizing that it's just got a Sanskrit name. It's a Western system. It frees us to be able to utilize the system much more. To say, if you don't do it their way, then you're doing it the wrong way, really misses the point.
You can do some really great energy work for yourself and for other people using it, and people have been doing that in many, many ways, and similar to how we're doing it now since 1977. So, history tells us it is a system that can be personalized and evolved based upon experience to be particularly useful to you.
And we hope that you found this presentation to be useful. We hope you enjoyed this history. We hope it makes it a little bit easier for you to utilize the system and develop your own practice.
Goodness knows other people did, and that's kind of the history of the chakras. So there you have it. That is the brief history of the chakra. Thank you very much for listening.